Michelle Noe. I wanted to explain some tax credit 101s and some misconceptions about tax credits. First of all, if you're a taxpayer in Arizona, you have what's called tax liability. Everybody who works in Arizona has to pay taxes to the Arizona Big Pot. By default, if you don't choose, all of your money goes into the big pot for your legislators to decide. However, if you want to be charitable and be the change you wish to see, you can choose to, before you give all your money here, you can disseminate your money into various different charities, nonprofits, and schools. There are 3 different kinds. There's the QFCO, Qualified Foster Care Charity Organization. There's a qualifying charity organization, and there's schools, and you can actually give to all 3. It all depends on how much tax liability you have. So when you give a tax credit, you're going to pay the same amount. The end result of how much money you get to keep is the same. However, before you pay your taxes, you can choose a tax credit. One of the biggest misconceptions is some people will say to me, oh, well, I don't ever owe taxes. Believe me, if you are in Arizona and you have at least a minimum wage job of $11 an hour and you work 40 hours a week, you have a tax liability. You have enough tax liability to give some kind of credit. Because really, when you write the check, your final check, it's not really what you owe per se, it's the balance of what you owe. And this is the biggest misconception because people say, oh, I don't really pay. You just prepay probably in taxes. You probably prepay in withholdings on your check, or you have deductions, etc. So I want to explain to you over here how it works. In Arizona, you have 3 main kinds of categories. It's the QFCO, Qualified Foster Care Organization, where you can give $1,000 if you're filing joint or $500 if you're single. There's the QCO, the Qualifying Charitable Organization, and you can give $800 or $400 single. And then there's the Public School Tax Credit, where you can give $400 joint or $200 single. How do you know which organizations are here? You simply go to www.azdor.gov, the Arizona Department of Revenue, and there are lists of which charities to choose from. For example, this is the list for the QFCOs, and each charity, like my charity, Boost a Foster Family, is given a code, like mine is 10043, and then when you make your donation, you have to know what that code is on your receipt. So, really, how much is your tax liability? The best way to find out is to check with your tax preparer. But just to give you a ballpark, after I've been studying this, if you make $100,000 a year, you probably have about $3,100 worth of tax credit. So you have enough to stack all 3, 2 nonprofits and 1 school tax credit. But scenarios vary. Single filers, if you make $43,000 a year, you might have $1,000 for your tax liability. If you make $31,000, you might have $500. It all depends on how many deductions you have, etc. Okay, what is another misconception? The difference between a tax deduction and a tax credit. A tax deduction of $1,000, for example, if you have a tax deduction and you're in a 35% tax bracket, it saves you $350 in taxes. But a tax credit is different. It's a dollar for dollar way to reduce and redirect your taxes. So if you have a $1,000 tax credit and you're in any tax bracket, it'll save you $1,000 in taxes. So instead of paying the big pot of Arizona, you can choose a charity, a nonprofit, or a school, and you get all that money back. What is tax liability? Your tax liability is the total amount you owe Arizona on your income. So you can check on your forms on the 1040-EZ or the Arizona 140. You can look at the different lines. You can look at line 11 on your EZ form or line 52 to know what your tax liability is. If you have $3,000 tax liability, for example, and you give a $1,000 tax donation to a charity, then you only owe $2,000. If you're going to get a refund of $1,000 and you donate $1,000 to a nonprofit, you can now get $2,000 back. So really, it's so cool. It used to be that you had to like donate by New Year's Eve each year, but now they have a new rule, and you can donate in the 12 months, you can donate to the year that it is. But if you donate your tax credit in January, February, March, or April, up until April 15th, during these 3.5 months, you can choose. You can either do it for the year that you're in or the previous year. So if you want to donate, you can donate, and you just have to make sure that you get your receipt, find out where your tax liability is. If you accidentally spend too much, you can also roll that over into, for 5 years you can pay. The best thing to do is to talk to a tax preparer to find out exactly how you can donate to a nonprofit or to a school.